It is mid-morning. The meeting of the Triumvirate is occurring at high noon. And the Arishok has urged you, all of you, to wait by the entrance of the pyramid for when the Aragena arrives. And when she does, to bring her just straight away up to the Arishok's office, because they've got some stuff to talk about.
Right.
There's just a couple things that she probably needs to be in the loop on about the Arakyun. You have been waiting in the lowest level of this pyramid for a while. There have been not a lot of people going in and out, because everyone in Parvalan apparently knows that there's a meeting of the Triumvirate happening, and have steered clear. When the Aragena does arrive, it is to not a whole lot of fanfare. It's just sort of, it's a large caravan like the Arishok travels in, but it's also, just like the Arishok's, not like especially well decorated. You can mistake it for a merchant caravan, and you'd be none the wiser. The Aragena steps out. For those of you who don't remember my description, it was a while ago. She is an older woman with horns that sort of curl back and then forward again, silvered hair that is held in a very, very tight, severe bun, and sort of comfortable, shapeless robes. She is helped down out of this carriage by a servant, and she comes into the main foyer and sees all of you just sort of standing there staring at her.
I just sort of incline my head. I'm like, greetings, Aragena.
She says, greetings. I remember you. You arrived on the boat with Arishok.
Yes. She's like, I'm like starting to get nervous, like, oh no, I feel like I'm on trial, or I didn't study for a pop quiz.
She sort of eyes you, and makes a move to go past you, like you're gonna have to steer her, toward the Arishok's office, because the Arishok said specifically, like, bring her up ASAP.
Yeah, so I think I will definitely say that. We were told to bring you to the Arishok if you would follow us.
She eyes you. She says, irregular. Is there a reason?
There is much to discuss. And that's all Cass says.
She raises one eyebrow. She says, by your leave, and follows you up. You are all guiding her up. You all have been in the pyramid now for a couple days, so you're super familiar with the layout of it at this point. And she says, rumor and speculation have pinned you as the offspring of Arishok.
Have they?
It is the business of a Tamasaran to listen and to speak, and many have been listening and speaking about you.
Cass sort of tries to keep a smile off her face, like, yeah, that sounds like them.
She says, in particular, the Tamasaran that raised you had much to say to me. She begged audience with me several times, asking about you.
That definitely is not what she expected to hear, like, my Tamasaran.
She says, indeed. Ever since you were discovered to be, Sarabas, and then especially after it was discovered that you left the Kyun, she came to me begging audience and asking that the matriarchy take over the investigation looking for you, which is to say, taking that responsibility away from the Ben Hasrath.
Oh, I had no idea.
Feel free to ask her about it. She should be coming up soon after me.
That is definitely something Cass wants to do. And she's like, I will make note of that, yes.
You make it up to the Arishok's room. The Arishok turns around when the door opens. He says, Aragena, it is good to see you again. The Aragena inclines her head. She says, Arishok, I must admit that a pre-meeting like this is a little bit irregular. I trust that you have good reason for bringing me up here.
Cass is looking at all of everybody like, oh...
You're the one who wants to be Arakyun. Start acting like it, Cass.
Exactly. Exactly.
Elian just kind of gives you an encouraging, go on.
Yes. She sort of brushes herself up okay. We have things to show you.
She says, things. Very well. What sort of things? And she helps herself to sit down at the table.
We have discovered many things that are more than irregular, such as abominations in Parvalin.
Abominations in Parvalin?
Yes, in the Arakun's wing. They were being controlled. And it seems like these are the results of experiments that have been rumored.
Ren is also there. He had been chilling with the Arishok waiting for you guys to arrive. He sort of, kicks back, sits down at the table, not the least bit concerned with the fact that, this is the Arishok, that's the Aragena. He doesn't understand the Kyun in the least, so he just sort of sits down next to her and says,
right.
So far as we can tell, they were Cerebos who were deliberately possessed by demons. And the Aragena looks extremely skeptical. She says, I have heard rumors of some of the things that have been happening in the Ben Hasrath, but surely you do not mean to suggest this accusation, I hope you understand, is outrageous.
I do understand. Had I not seen it for myself, I would not have believed such a thing would be acceptable. It is not acceptable.
Ren says, and that's not even the half of what we saw.
True. Not only that, the hallway seemed to be lined with lyrium, and we also saw a Cerebos perform blood magic to summon demons twice.
She says, that is not possible. Blood magic is explicitly forbidden. Koslun himself wrote about the forbidden magic.
It is forbidden, Aragena, but twice before our very eyes to summon demons.
Go ahead and roll persuasion, Cass.
Okay.
A 15. That is a very good roll. That is a very good roll, Cassandra. So this is a hard sell.
Yeah.
Things in the Kyun generally don't change overnight. They change gradually, if at all. So to hear that the Artikyun has gone from a traditional role for all intents and purposes to someone who is using lyrium for intentionally creating abominations, forcing Cerebos to use blood magic. That's a lot for her to take in.
Yep.
She looks over at the Arishok and she says, "You believe these accounts?" The Arishok says, "I did not want to, but their story is corroborated." He says, "I think now would be a good time for us to show you what they brought back from the records of the Ben Hasrath." And he pulls out those 2 scrolls that you smuggled out, sliding them over toward the Aragena. He says, "The proof of malpractice exists in more than just demonstrations of blood magic, Aragena. It exists in the way the people of the Kyun have reacted." The Aragena slowly opens up these scrolls, and her eyes start scanning the list. And the Arishok continues, "People have been leaving the Kyun in droves, far more than the Ben Hasrath could possibly hope to find." Her eyes are narrowed, she's skimming the document, and she says, "Well, this is quite a lengthy amount of names. Surely this is 3,000 this must be from at least 2-3 years worth of names."
Cass just shakes her head no. Months. 6 months worth of time, Aragena.
6? You're telling this list of what this has to be 2,000, 3,000 names is only from the last 6 months?
Yes.
She sits back a little and rubs her forehead. "I, more than most, had heard the rumors of the Artikyun's behavior, but I had assigned it a spurious rumor. After all, what were the odds that..." The Arishok says, "I know. I had hoped that they were just rumor too. But now that we are confronted with the truth, it is our obligation, our duty, to put in a vote of no confidence." She says, "That's a pretty extreme step, Arishok. Normally there are tribunals we could form, inquiries we could make," and he shakes his head. He says, "All of this," he says, gesturing to the list of names. She says, all these people leaving the Kyun, all of this blood magic that has been suddenly put into use, the demons that have been summoned, the abominations that have been made, we have only heard of them through vague rumor, which can only mean that she has a very tight stranglehold on the Ben Hasrath and the priesthood. He says, we do not have time for an inquest. Who knows what she is capable of? And the time it takes to complete a full formal investigation, she could have... He just shakes his head. It's too risky. The Aragana sits back and she says, well, if we do have a vote of no confidence, we would be forced to come up with a replacement. And she says, do you have any ideas?
Oh boy, delightful.
So how do we want to tackle this? Because, I'm an outsider. Me saying I support you, that's not really gonna be much better than you just saying, right?
I mean, I invite you to consider the fact that there isn't really a political system. The Arakia and the Aragana, the Arashok, they're not elected. They're appointed. There isn't really politics to consider here. Apart from, any backstabbing that might occur within the Ben Hasrath or something.
Yeah.
This is the Kyun. The best method would be to be direct.
Cass sort of squares her shoulders and is like, there was another option. Or rather, there are two options. My Tamasrin offered to be the replacement, and so did I.
She stares at you. She says, both of those choices they're unacceptable. A Tamasrin, she says, a Tamasrin belongs to the matriarchy, not to the priesthood. Your Tamasrin has never studied the tome of Koslun, has never studied the philosophy of the Kyun. And you are a Sarabas. There would be no one who would accept a Sarabas as an Arakyun.
I disagree. It's true, like you said, I am a Sarabas, but it's time for change, Aragana. We need to make a Kyun that is not afraid of magic.
She says, I think the current Arakyun is a little too not afraid of magic for everyone's good. She says she's using blood magic, summoning demons, and you're telling me we need to be less afraid of magic?
The Arakyun has lost her way. We must right it.
And she says, and you think you know the proper way to use magic better than the Arakyun?
I understand your skepticism, Aragana, but I want more than anything for the Kyun to change and to help.
She says the Kyun has already changed, apparently for the worse.
Elian does pipe up. Respectfully, from what I've heard of magic under the Kyun, it's only used for destruction and for battle. But I've seen healing and subtlety in magic that I would not have thought possible before I met Cassandra and the others.
The Aragana eyes you, and she says, Koslun teaches us, and the Arashok abruptly interjects, Koslun's been dead for hundreds of years, Aragana. He says, perhaps the biggest flaw of Koslun was his dogged determination on creating a perfect, unchanging path. We have demonstrable proof that his path was not perfect, and that it cannot be unchanging. He says, the Kyun has to adapt, it has to grow. Otherwise, we will be the victims of our own hubris. The Aragana sits back contemplatively. She says, this is quite drastic, Arashok. The Arashok says, I know. The Aragana continues, I know you have good intentions, but even good intentions can be used unwisely. And the Arashok says, there was never any great reward that was not without risk. The Aragana sighs, and she looks over at you, Cassandra, and she says, a Sarabas as Arakyun. Well, I suppose I've lived to see stranger things in my life. So, the meeting of the Triumvirate, like the formal meeting of the Triumvirate. it begins at high noon, but it takes a while to set up because there are more people than I think any of you were really expecting. Like, obviously, there's the Arishok, the Araki, and the Arigena, but also they each have, like, an entourage of people that are sitting in that little riser section in a half ring around the table. In all, the room is, like, pretty fucking packed. There's close to, like, 36 people in this single room, most of them gathered in the risers. All of you are in the far right section of the risers because you're all guests of the Arishok. And as you are all taking your seat, Fenris says, "You know, I had a thought about the Arakyun." To you, Cassandra.
By all means, share this thought.
He says, it occurs to me, anyone who would do the shit that she's done, intentionally having mages possessed by demons using blood magic, she's clearly unstable. And, of course, everyone has pointed that out. I'm certainly not the first. But I invite you to consider the fact that if you let her talk long enough, that fact will reveal itself to everyone here.
I totally forgot Fenris has, experience with Meredith. Oh my god, yeah! Okay. Speaking of unstable, DA2.
If you just let a crazy person talk long enough, eventually it's going to get really hard to ignore that they're fucking crazy.
She takes that into consideration and nods like, that is a very good point.
He says, undoubtedly, she will try to engage you. Of course, she sees you as a rival now, if she hadn't already. Let her talk, he says. In fact, if you can, egg her on to talk more. Eventually, it'll just slip.
It is definitely worthy of consideration.
Just a thought. And he pats you on the shoulder. The bells of Kunandar toll high noon, and the room quiets. All the player characters and Fenris and Ren are sitting in the risers behind the Arishok, and the rest of the risers are full as well, as the 3 leaders, the Triumvirate, each enter through separate doors and sit down slowly at this table, each with very different expressions on their face. And for a couple seconds, no one really says anything. You know, papers are being shuffled, servants are muttering to each other about the drinks they need to bring to the table, that kind of thing. And just as one of the servants is heading over to the Arakyun to ask her if she wants anything to drink, she waves the servant off very abruptly, and she says, Enough with all this, formality. Arishok, you called us here for a reason, and I'm very, very keen to get on with it. And the Arishok, you know, takes it in stride. He's a soldier. He can handle his shit. So he says, very well. And he stands up while the servants scuttle to the edge of the room. He says, the world is facing another blight. No discernible reaction from anyone. He says, it is quite close to our borders. On the other side of an ocean, I grant, but it is beginning in Triumvirate. An archdemon, a dragon corrupted by the blight, has been seen less than 300 miles from the coast of Parvalan, not far from Minrathis. As you all know, I have been working over the past several months to secure an end to the war between Triumvirate and Kunandar, and the Arakyun very pointedly interjects, you know, the last Arishok who wondered about the blight died in disgrace. The Arishok keeps his lips shut tightly, and he says, did you have something productive to add, Arakyun? The Arakyun says, why should the Kyun care about the blight? What do you think the Darkspawn are going to do? Swim across the ocean into Parvalan? It's not a real threat. The Arishok says, they can tunnel, Arakyun. They can travel underground for miles, if necessary, to reach us. And she says, oh, and you have record of this happening, do you? The Arishok says, I have brought with me a witness, a Grey Warden from the Legendary Order who can help educate us about a blight. Ren's like, oh, fuck. And then he quickly, like, scrambles up out of his seat. And hurries over toward, there's a little witness stand, like, right on the, opposite the risers, somewhat separate from the table. And the Arakian says, "Ah, yes, the famous hero of Ferelden. How kind of you to grace us with your presence." The Arishok says, "Would you please explain to those assembled, Kadan?" He says, using the word very deliberately, making sure everyone hears him saying it, "the dangers of a blight." And Ren says, "Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, it seems kind of fucking nuts that I have to explain why a blight is bad and dangerous. Anyone who's lived in the south of Thedas within the last 20 years can tell you all about why a blight is super, super fucking deadly and dangerous. But long story short, an archdemon, like you said, Arishok, a dragon corrupted by the blight, rises out from the deep roads and begins commanding an army of darkspawn that will slowly overrun the world." And abruptly, the Arakian interjects again. She says, "There has never been an army that has been able to breach the walls of Kunandar when we have fortified our lands," she says. "We can pull back anyone that remains in the southern islands, in Ravane, in Navarra, bring them back to the homeland, and fortify and wait it out. That is what we have done in Blight's past. We have just waited it out." Ren says, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. How are you going to defend yourself against a high dragon? You know they can fly, right? Like, they're huge and they can, like, breathe fire and shit. Like, what are you going to do? Fucking build a giant dome over the whole of Parvalan? You're kind of strapped for time. I don't know if you've got the necessary resources."
I love Ren.
Take Ren to all
Ren.
meetings.
He's, in his defense, I was like, he was dead, so he's like a little tired of this shit.
The Arakian does not seem to take his attitude well. She rises from her chair and goes to speak to him directly, and she says, "The hero of Ferelden, didn't you die in the last blight?" And Ren sort of purses his lips and says, "It's complicated." And she says, "Death is one of the simplest concepts in the world. The only reason I can imagine that you would come back from the dead is if there had been some wicked magic that had done so." And she says, "And as long as we're talking about diplomatic guests of the Arishok," she turns and, like, looks over at your section. She says, "I would like to bring into question the people that the Arishok has so wisely decided to bring into our lands." She gestures to Cassandra. "A Talvashoth escaped Cerebos who no longer has a handler to guide her magic." She gestures to Elian. "A wanted criminal from Orlais." She gestures to Fenris. "An elf who once fought with the Fog Warrior rebels in Saharan, covered in dangerous lyrium markings." And then she turns to you.
I've been enjoying this, by the way. I've just been, like, smiling and, like, snickering every time she, like, burns somebody.
And then it's your turn, and her face gets dark when she turns to you. "And this one, a Baz Cerebos." And that actually does get a couple mutters.
A what?
She still thinks you're a mage.
A what? I just look, like, horribly offended.
She says, "I saw with my own eyes that elf use dangerous, untamed magic."
And where did you see that?
Ren says, "Was it before or after you summoned a pride demon to attack him?"
Twice.
Very defensively.
So was that you?
She does not look like you accuse her of using blood magic to summon a demon, and she, like, it's like water off a duck's back. Like, she barely even acknowledges the comment. And she says, "Everything I have done, I have used in service of the Kyun. But you," she says, pointing to you, Sabre, "you contain dangerous magic that has never known the care of an Arvarod or the service of the Kyun. You are a danger just by being here."
Okay, well, first off, I don't do magic, so you're confused. But secondly...
Why don't you step forward and prove it then, Boss Cerebos?
How am I supposed to prove that I'm a negative? How would I do that?
And suddenly, a second Arvarad, this is not Kay's Arvarad, obviously, because Cassandra's Arvarad is super duper dead. He dead,
yeah.
An Arvarad who had been in the Articuan's riser section stands up and, with a large metal chain that clanks loudly, pulls his Cerebos, a female, down into the floor. And she says, "Why don't we force this Boz Cerebos to demonstrate the magic that burns in his veins?"
Well, looking at Cassandra, like, what is going on right now? Why are you letting your people do this? What?
This is all your fault specifically, Cassandra.
Someone stop this mad person.
It does seem to be the Arishok who was trying to intervene. He says, "Articuan, surely you're not going to bring a Cerebos onto the floor." And then suddenly Arvarad barks out an order in Cunlot, and I want everyone to roll initiative if you don't mind.
Oh,
Cool.
boy.
Excellent. Love this.
Yeah.
So we've all rolled initiative. The initiative order is set. The Arvarad barks out an order to the Cerebos. The Cerebos uses their own claws to slash down their arm. And summon up a rage demon. You've dealt with this particular beastie before.
Blood magic on the fucking Senate floor.
Right, I love it.
I mean, Fenris wasn't wrong. Like, if you just let her talk,
Right?
the crazy will show itself. The rage demon. This particular rage demon is bigger than the one that you fought at the Arlath Fen. It is maybe 15 feet tall. Mechanically, what I have done is I have made this an elite rage demon, which means it's a little bit beefed up.
Oh, joy.
So, Cassandra, you are up first. You have 3 targets, technically. You can attack the Arvarad, you can attack the Cerebos, or you can attack the rage demon.
I'm gonna attack the Arvarad, methinks. And I'm like, you know what? I just like look at Sabray and I was like, you feel like fighting demons? Good. All yours!
That's not what I want. Okay.
I'll just go into combat magic mode and summon my sword and smash the thing.
Okay. You summon your magical sword in the middle of the room. It is extremely cool.
Yes.
A 12 does not hit a beefed up rage demon.
That's what I thought.
But you do have 2 stunt points if you want to do anything with stunt points.
Oh, okay. Let's move yourself or the target 2 yards away. Sure. Yes, I will do that then.
Okay. You swinging at the rage demon with your sword, it sort of skids off this craggy, like its whole body is molten lava and it has this sort of rock-like armor, as, you know, like when you see a lava flow, there are those flat chunks of black rock that float on its surface. It has that, but kind of wrapped around its whole body. It skids off the rock, and you sort of shoulder check it in one of those hardened rocky places and knock it back a couple feet away from, you know, the more like the Aragena is very old, so she probably she should probably be kept away from the rage demon. Elian, you're up next.
Okie dokie. So Elian is going to, I think, use one use of the crow poison on his rapier and then attack.
Okay. Do that thing that you said. An 18. Oh yes, that is a hit.
Excellent.
Go ahead and roll damage. The bad news is that its defense is 5, so the slashing damage doesn't do anything, but the penetrating damage does do 5 damage.
Oh,
Yay.
good.
Sabray, it is your turn.
Sweet.
Okay, everyone else shut the hell up. No real comments from the peanut gallery, okay? Val, zip lips. Sabray, do not consider the politics unless you think your character would consider the politics. Are you going to use Justice's magic?
I'm not, mostly because I'm pissed off about the implication that I can't kill people without magic.
I mean, that's not what she implied at all.
Yes, but that's what I'm taking from it, because, you know, I'm deeply, deeply pissed off about the concept that I, like, have to use. I don't like being associated with magic anyways. Like, I'm already kind of pissy about it. I'm at least not gonna do judgment. I think I am gonna do the spirit warrior thing, because I'm not that good. I'm not smart enough to not think about that and those implications.
Yeah, you immediately start glowing with all sorts of
effectively it's gonna
spooky
look like
magic.
the same thing, but
Okay, so you activate Spirit Warrior mode?
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna make your life hard, Cassandra, sorry. And then I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna be like, I don't need magic to kill you, and not grasping the concepts. And I'm gonna attack the rage demon with a spear. Just throw it at its fucking head.
Okay, go ahead and roll to hit. A 15 is a hit. Go ahead and roll damage. 13 minus an armor rating of 5 is 8. Do 8 damage. Excellent work. So as soon as you light up with all your spooky spirit warrior magic and slash at this demon, you see, like, the Arcane just crows. Like, you see right before this council chamber, this boss, Sarah Boss, uses untamed magic. And, like, people are, like, whispering, but none of them are fucking talking about the elf that just started glowing. They're all talking about the fact that the Arcane just fucking summoned a demon. Like, in the middle of the room. Just summoned a rage demon with blood magic in the middle of this room. And people are terrified, and they're, like, starting to scatter. Because, you know, it's a fucking demon! What the fuck?
I, like, look down at myself and I go, fuck.
Don't worry, no one's looking at you. And, like, for the rest of the fight, like, the Articuno in the background is just crowing. Like, it's like, this Arishok allowed, like, a boss, Cerebos, to come into our lands. Like, untamed, dangerous magic that's never known the Kyun. And no one is listening to her because they're all fucking panicking about the rage demon in the middle of the room. Next up in the order is the Arvarad, who orders the Cerebos to cast lightning.
Oh no.
And they're going to cast it on Sabre. That's what we'll do.
That checks out.
Which is a hit, and that's 5 stunt points.
Oh boy,
He's going to use Mighty Spell, which is a total of 3d6 penetrating damage. That's a shitty roll, is what that is. 2, 4. You take 8 penetrating damage.
Oh.
You get shocked with lightning, and it hurts. And ow.
Fuck.
It is now the Rage Demon's turn. The Rage Demon is also going to attack you, because you just lit yourself up like a big old target.
Yeah, fair enough.
He's gonna go ahead and... any creature that begins their a turn adjacent to a Rage Demon takes 2 points of penetrating damage at the start of the demon's turn. So that's Cassandra and Sabre, and Elian, actually.
And Elian.
You all take 2 penetrating damage from the fire, just from being close to it.
Yep.
Cool. Great.
And now it is going to attack Sabre. Oof, 21 and 6 stunts.
Yeah, that's gonna hurt.
This is gonna hurt.
Oh, no.
They're gonna lethal blow, which is a total of 4d6 plus 4.
Ow.
15 damage.
Is that penetrating, or is it...
No, it is not penetrating damage.
Okay.
But it's still a big chunk.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Ren stands up, he says, "What the fuck? What the whole fuck?" And he pulls Virtanadal off his back, and he's like, "Okay, I guess we're doing this." A 19 is more than enough to hit. No stunt die, but that's fine. That is 6 damage, and that is penetrating damage, because he has a special archer feat thing. He thwip a bow right into its side. It splinters some of the heavy rock armor that is covering its shoulder and its chest. Next up in the order is Fenris. Fenris he's not feeling this. Like, he wants to do his lyrium ghost thing. So he swears in Kinlot and, like, basically saying, like, "Oh, that's quite enough of that." So he is going to roll Strength Might versus the target's con stamina. So his Strength Might is +7.
He's a big smashy boy. Damn!
22. And then its con stamina is +1 for the Rage Demon. Good fucking... I don't think it's possible for them. Yeah, no.
Wow.
So Fenris, he's like, "That's enough," and he goes into lyrium ghost mode, leaping over the edge of the railing and plunging his heart into the Rage Demon's chest and ripping out this core of molten lava that, like, dissolves in his hands.
Ew.
The Rage Demon arches its back and slowly dissolves into lava. And the fight is over, right? And the Arcane looks just so pleased. Like, she turns to the rest of the crowd and she says, "You see? 2 of them are Baz Cerebos with dangerous magic that must be contained." And, like, no one is staring at the two of you. Like, no one's looking at Fenris for his lyrium ghost thing. No one's looking at you, Sabre, for your spirit warrior thing. They're all staring at the Arakyun in absolute fucking astonishment. And I think it is the Aragena who first stands up and she says, Arakyun, do you even realize what you've done? The Arakyun seems more than anything kind of confused. Like, she looks back at the Aragena imperiously. She says, I did what the Kyun demands. The Aragena says, the Kyun does not demand blood magic and demon summoning. It has never demanded that. And the Arishok stands up as well, and he says, I call for an immediate vote of no confidence. And the Arakyun says, no confidence? Your confidence should not decide anything, Arishok. I am the Arakyun. I have studied the Tome of Korsalun. I am the soul of the Kyun. And the Aragena says, that very well may be. But regardless, I agree with his vote of no confidence. You are hereby ousted from your position. So, a couple things all happen at once. Like, the Arakyun is spitting hot coals. Like, she was so certain of herself that she was doing what was correct. Like, she is the soul of the Kyun. She cannot do wrong. She was so certain of that fact that she could not have even conceived of the fact that people might take offense to the fact that she summoned demons with blood magic. Which is an indicator of her mental state, I think, more clear than any other that she's displayed thus far. She is quite literally dragged out by two members of the Barasad, not the Ben Hasroth. The Barasad, the army, soldiers are going to escort her to re-education to await trial, and they are going to be monitoring her, the Arishok assures you. What's left of the Triumvirate, the scattered people in the risers, they're all sort of muttering to each other like, they can't fucking believe that bullshit just happened.
Right? Right there.
Right in front of their salad.
Exactly.
Like, just imagine you're watching C-SPAN and just, like, somebody fucking...
The remaining crowds, like, no one's really sitting anymore. They're all too nervous to sit. They're all sort of discussing what just happened with each other in low tones. And as the Arakyun is dragged out, quite literally kicking and screaming, the Arishok looks to them, opens his mouth to address them, to, like, he wants to reassure them, because, like, he is, like, a leader, and this is part of what a leader does. He reassures them. But he stops before he speaks, and he looks back at you, Cassandra. He says, now might be a good moment for you to speak. Kadan, prove yourself to them that you can be the leader they need.
She just sort of nods at him and then stands up and straightens herself and walks towards the crowd, I guess, and addresses them.
As soon as you walk forward, toward the center of this ring of risers, this half ring of risers, they just all sort of quiet down, and all eyes turn and stare at you.
She looks around and, like, takes a deep breath. Shanedan, once I was called Cerebas. Now I call myself Cassandra. I ran from the Kyun in fear, but I am no longer afraid. I have seen much of the outside world. I have fought Darkspawn and spoken to leaders of nations. I have seen with my own eyes an archdemon, and have been fighting with my friends to stop the spread of another blight. As the Arishok mentioned, it started in Tevinter and will make its way to Parvalan if we don't stop it. To do that, the Kyun needs to change. We need to change. Too long we have said Asit Taleb and done nothing. Magic is as part of this world as the sea or the sky. It is a tool to be shaped by those who can use it. I would use it to help, but I cannot do this alone. Join me.
The Arishok puts his hand on your back reassuringly, and he says, the new Arakyun. And everyone sort of looks at each other, and then slowly they take knee in front of you, Cassandra, one by one, starting with the rightmost side of the ring with the guests of the Arishok, and then sweeping around the guests of the Aragena, and then, somewhat reluctantly, the guests of the Arakian also take knee in front of you. The meeting of the Triumvirate, such that it is over now. You're all heading back to the rooms that the Arishok assigned to you. And Fenris just...
You were right.
Has that ever happened before?
Blood magic? On the floor?
Sabray, this entire year has been nothing but unexpected and incomprehensible things happening to us.
I didn't believe it was happening to Vinter. I don't know, maybe that's just like a regular Tuesday.
No. This is not regular.
Ren says, so, you know the Arishok and the Arakian. Nice.
So what is it, Cassandra, what does it mean to be the, Arakune? Do you have to stay here forever?
Well, if I am part of the Triumvirate, my duties will keep me here mostly, yes.
Fenris says, I imagine you'll probably have to stay at least a little while longer in Tevinter. After all, that is where the Blight is starting.
A little bit of a concern.
There are, pressing matters to attend to first.
Ren says, but we've got, I mean, it sure heckin' looks like we've got, like, the army, like, the Antom, like, they're gonna be, oh my god, they're gonna fight with us against the Blade. Okay, that's a lot.
We managed to get another ally, thank god.
And Fenris says, it is a very, very good thing.
Yeah.
The Antom is a fighting force that is unsurpassed in Thetis.
Indeed.
And he says, and, I mean, after the Blade is over, Cassandra. Ren chimes in, he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to leave after everything, won't you?
Yeah, I will.
Ren gets a little sad. He's like,
oh,
yeah. Are we gonna see you again?
I mean, I hope so.
You have to come visit, because we were gonna...
Only because we all get so seasick.
Yes, you're definitely gonna have to visit us, not the other way around.
Right. You have mirrors, it's fine.
Do you think May is gonna come here?
Oh, that's another thing to think about.
Ren says, yeah, I remember the Archon wants to appoint either her or Dorian as his successor, right?
Right.
I can't imagine you're gonna have a lot of time for each other if you fucking...
Yeah, that's another thing we have to discuss and figure out what to do with.
Says, yeah. It's like, man, the Magus, like, this was a clusterfuck, but I just have this nasty feeling, Ren says, like, if Kunandar was this bad, can you fucking imagine how much of a nightmare the Magisterium is gonna be?
Only too vividly.
Yeah, I can't imagine, and I'm already getting a headache.
I was trying not to think about it too hard.
It's fine.
From behind you, as you're about to make it into your room, you hear a very familiar voice say, Imakari? Or should I say Arakian?
Oh, and I definitely turn around. I'm like, Tama.
She is smiling. She looks like she was not, like, you appointing yourself Arakian was not a move she was expecting. But she doesn't look angry.
I know you put yourself forward, but, you heard what I said. To change.
Imakari, what, do you think I'm angry? My putting myself forward as Arakian was never about personal power. It was about getting rid of your predecessor. By any means necessary.
She certainly showed herself to be in dire need of replacement.
So certain of herself that she couldn't even see how far she'd fallen. She says, you have to promise me, Imakari. Don't let yourself go down that road. Never become too proud to listen to the advice of others, all right?
Cass takes, both of her hands in hers, and yes, I promise.
She says you'll probably have to return to Tevinter to deal with the Blight, but when you come home, I'll make sure that you're welcomed. And she pulls you into a tight hug.
Oh, yeah, definitely hug her back.
And she says, don't be alarmed. There are 4 Cerebos in your bedroom.
Okay, that sentence alone is alarming, but all right.
Do your best to smuggle them out of Parvalin. I know that you are Arakian now, but change happens slowly, and they are still in very immediate danger. They need to get out of Parvalin.
Okay.
And she pulls back and she puts a hand on your cheek and she says, I never could have imagined this path for you, Imakari.
It is also a little shocking to me as well, but I think this is where I'm meant to be.
And don't think you'll get out of introducing me to this lady love of yours. I've heard about her through the grapevine, and I'm going to meet her.
Oh, you have, of course you have. Yes, I will
Yes,
absolutely.
I'm going to meet her. Imakari, look at me. I'm going to meet her.
Yes, you are going to meet her. In fact, she will probably make herself known whether I want her to or not.
She says, good, just so we're clear. Then from the other end of the hallway, you hear, Cassandra, I was looking for, hello, Tabasrin. The Arishok has rounded the corner and very abruptly, confronted, Yortama. He says, I was looking for Cassandra. I was going to speak to Cassandra for a moment if she has a moment to speak. We need to discuss the out of Parvalin.
You can speak now. It's fine.
He said, "It's like I don't think I can. Actually, we might have to."
She just sort of rolls her eyes, like, "Oh my god, hopeless."
The Tabasrin puts 2 hands on her hips, and she says, "Well, I wouldn't want to make you uncomfortable, Arishok." The Arishok says, I'm not uncomfortable. She just sort of chuckles and clucks her tongue and walks past him.
Wow, that was very smooth. Father, good job.
Red was like, I love this. This is amazing. I love that you turn into a stuttering idiot the minute you get within 10 meters of a pretty woman. That's awesome. Arishok is like, we need to discuss the itinerary out of Parvalin, he says a little too brusquely.
Yes, we shall do that.
Hey friends, Tessa here. If you're desperate to hear the next episode, chances are good that you can by joining our Discord server. We post links to all episodes and pre-release, and you can even chat with us and listen live as we record. Join us by going to bit.ly/CFCDiscord. For more information on the show, character biographies, and links to social media, head to our website, critfail.club or critfailclub.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Crit Fail Club does not advertise at all, so if you like what you hear, tell a friend who might also like it, make a post on social media about it, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Full episodes are available on our YouTube channel, bit.ly/CFC channel, or wherever you get your podcasts.